Okay, so we just got back from Ottawa late last night, and I wanted to make a video or start journaling some of the things down, just so I can remember freshly my experience, what our experience was like in Ottawa over the weekend. And yeah, so if you are interested in hearing about how our experience was in Ottawa, then you're welcome to listen along. And if not, that's okay. This is not for you. So what happened, how we started was a few weeks ago, like pretty much when they were headed to Ottawa, maybe like a week after they were in Ottawa, I booked an Airbnb because it was like the first time that I could get there, and I just knew that when I booked it, I knew that I needed to be there. One of the biggest draws for me to be there was to show my support for people standing for their medical freedom, and to remove the restrictions and the mandates and the passports, and stand with people who are fighting for people to have a choice, right? And so that was one of the big things for me. The second thing that I really wanted to get from it was just to experience it for myself, because like reading about it, seeing some things that they post about in like the mainstream media, following some accounts that are people there and showing like just different perspectives of what's happening on the ground. I just wanted to get my own experience, and I really wanted to talk to people, especially people who have been there from the beginning, and just like listen to what their experience has been like, and not really read about it, but just like be with those people. So when I booked the Airbnb, I really didn't know who was going to be coming with me, but I knew that I was going to be there, and I felt even if I went by myself, like nothing was going to really stop me from being there. And so anyway, so I had that booked, and then as I saw happening, like more restrictions came into play, right? And there was more threat, a lot more fear about people being in Ottawa. And a lot of what I was seeing is that the protesters were staying very, very peaceful and exercising their right to protest, which we all have the right to do. And yeah, everybody was like very loving. If you see some of the videos, they're like dancing in the streets, and there's like bouncy castles. Like it looks like the most Canadian protest ever. Like, and it's cold. It was like so cold. Yeah, so I wanted to be there myself. And so before we had left, they had changed a whole bunch of restrictions, and like Trudeau had tried to put the Emergency Act in. And so I don't know, there was just a lot of fear. I knew that there was people, some of the accounts that I was following, their accounts had been frozen, so they didn't even have access to their funds, like their own money. And they didn't have any charges against them, but they still didn't have any access to their money. And yeah, none of that was like, I was aware that that was happening, but it was just became, with each and more restriction and the more fear that they were pumping out about the protest, the more important it became to be there. And yeah, so when we went down, Chris and I went down together. We tried to leave at like 4 a.m. But then there was like a massive snowstorm. It was like whiteouts everywhere. So we ended up leaving much later, like around 8 or 9. It's a good thing we did, because there was tons of trucks like in the ditch, and yeah, we ended up not getting to Ottawa until like probably around 5. So anyway, we went straight to our Airbnb, and we were staying about 20 minutes away from downtown. And so then we ended up going down later that night, probably around 10. We started to make our way down there, and it was like really, really tricky to get to. And we had heard that there was tons of police blockades and things like that. So when we started driving, we knew where we wanted to go. We weren't really sure how to get there. And then so it took us back on the highway, our navigation, and it was just, everything was blocked off. Like all the exits were blocked off. They were barricaded off. You couldn't get off. So we ended up driving around, getting our way through. We got stopped by one police, what's it called? Not a barricade, but they were just they were asking every person why they were going. And so we got through that one. We said we were visiting a friend, because we were going down to visit friends. And so we ended up like parking, we and found a parking spot like on the street. And then we ended up making our way down, but it was like really tricky to get to because everything, like little streets were blocked off, big streets were blocked off, there was barricades. And so anyway, we ended up just meeting with people and kind of like following them. But it was interesting because even like the very first person that we ended up talking to, just like walking with him, he was one of the truckers and he was there from the beginning. I can't remember where he came from. I think it was in Ontario though. But he was saying that when we got there, he's like, it's different. Like things are much different than it was even like a few days before because of how once they got the trucks out, he said he just never in his life thought that he would see the government turn on peaceful people because it turned pretty violent. And so he said they got like 2 or 3 trucks. They smashed out the windows and took truckers out of the trucks. And he's like, if there wasn't a whole bunch of people to run and like stand in the way of the police like moving in on them, he said, I don't know how many trucks they would have ended up getting. How many truckers they would have ended up getting out as well. And so, yeah, he was just a little bit like, he was very calm. He was very just like, you could tell he was just like this very down to earth guy. And he was just like a little bit shook because what he said was, I never thought I would see the government turn on our like peaceful people. And then like he didn't say this, but like once you see something like that and how many people saw that, right? You can't like unsee that that's happening. Yeah. And he talked a bit about it being very spiritual war, like a lot of darkness, a lot of evil coming through like places in Ottawa. He's like, but in the streets, like the streets are full of people who are just so full of light and it like, it's incredible. And part of why I really wanted to be there is because like, even just the fact that there was this protest in Ottawa with like hundreds of thousands of people there over the last few weeks, and there was like no crime, like there wasn't vandalism. They've been cleaning the streets and they have been like feeding homeless and like taking care of each other, and like no violence, no arrest, like not like real arrest, yeah, so that was very interesting. So by the time we got down, most of the people had already gone home, but we got to be in the streets with some of the people, and I have a video that I'll share. But yeah, everybody, like there was police around for sure, but people were just like dancing and singing and just being joyous. And they were in the streets, but whenever there was like cars coming, they would move out of the way. And there was a couple cars that had a hard time getting up to like the little raft, like, or not raft, but like the hill. And so they would be dancing, and then they would see that the car was having a hard time spinning. So then they would go and like, they would push the car, still be dancing and cheering. And then like police cars would come through, they'd back out of the way and make sure everyone was moved, and then they'd come back together. And like, it was just very peaceful and joyful. And yeah, and we got to talk to some people too that had been there, like either from like the first weekend or from the second weekend. So they'd already been there for like a couple weeks, or the people were coming down every single weekend to be there. What I thought was really interesting was from the people that we met. It was a very like emotional experience for people that have been there for a long time and got to experience what it was like before and then after they came after the truckers, and like really emotional experience for them, and like seeing what happened even though they were being peaceful and they were exercising their rights and they weren't doing anything wrong. And but just like how provoking it became. And yeah, because earlier that night, that's when they had gotten out, like the protesters were getting like pepper sprayed, and there was some rubber bullets happening. And yeah, so he's like, it really shifted, like things had shifted so there weren't as many people there, and it was a little bit more like quieter, but the people that were there were still very peaceful and loving, like not interested at all in being anything other than having a good time. Yeah, so that was that night, and then we went back to our Airbnb. So we went down the next morning. We had heard that there was going to be like a gathering in front of the war memorial area there, like just on the sidewalk. And so we ended up driving there, and Mom and Dad had given us some money, so we went to Tim Hortons and we got a whole bunch of gift cards and like boxes of coffee, because I had seen someone. It wasn't my idea. I wish I could take the credit for that one, but definitely can't. But I had saw on one of the videos there was people that was like on the line, like of the police and the protesters, right? And they're like going back and forth, and they have coffee or hot chocolates, and they're passing it out to everyone. And I just loved seeing that, because the idea of any time where you can like bridge people together, yeah, because it's not like we are fighting for freedom, but and it's for everybody to can like have choice, right? You're standing for something, but it's not a fight against people. And so I really loved the idea that they were like sharing this. So because Mom and Dad had given us some money to help out in ways that we could when we got there, so Krista and I went and we got jugs of coffee and gift cards to pass out, and Krista put like little notes on them, and like little and some Bible verses on some of them, and she put them on the cups, and she put them on the gift cards. And so we were able to give them to people part of the protest who's been there for a long time, or homeless people, like really anybody that we saw that we thought. And if people didn't want to take them, we just asked them to share we said that's okay, you don't have to keep it, but you can just share that with somebody that you would like to share it with. So we took coffees down, and we parked on the side of the road. There was already cars there. And so we looked at the parking. I tried to pay for parking. It didn't take my credit card because it said it was free on Sunday. And so we didn't really think anything much more of it. And then went down to the side of the road, and we're with the peaceful protesters. They had Canadian flags out. Or wherever they were from in Canada. There were some Australians there. There was a guy from Cuba there as well. Like there was people from all over the place. They had flags from everywhere, and they were like standing and singing. And so we were like passing out coffee and chatting, and we had walked over and offered some to the officers. They were very friendly. None of them had any, but they were like very like polite and like very peaceful as well. And so then, and I had heard them say when we had come back over, that there was a van that was going to get a ticket, and we weren't driving a van, so I didn't really think anything of it. And then we just kept passing out coffee and talking to people. And then we heard, I'm a little bit spacey if you know me too, so there's that part of it. But and then I heard them say like, and then I looked over, and it was my car was there, and there was 10 police like surrounding our car, and there was a tow truck like speeding down and about to like do a U-turn. So Chris and I started running towards our car, because our car was surrounded by cops, and we knew that the tow truck was coming. So anyway, we're like sprinting down the street to get to our car, and it turns out like there a group of people that we had just been with, they came with us, and they had their phones out, and they were filming, and they had put a ticket on my car. They put a ticket for, I saw later, it was $110 for this parking ticket. And so we get down, like we get there, and they're backing the tow truck up to tow our car, and they were like, there was one officer who was very angry, like just yelling, get in your car, drive away. And Chris was like, but it's Sunday. It's Sunday. She should be here to explain this. It's because she's like, but it's Sunday, like it's free on Sunday. And he's like, get in your car. And so like people are, then at this point, people are shouting, let her go, because they were like, had us blocked in essentially. And most of the officers were just like, the one officer had said, if the tow truck touches your car, like that will be the end of it. Like, so you should go. And I was like, okay. And I said, is this really all necessary? Because I was like, it was in such like, we were so calm because we were so confused how it had escalated so quickly. Like, why are there 10 cops surrounding our car, and why are they about to tow our car when we legally parked? Like, we were pretty diligent about checking where we were. But anyway, it just happened like so fast. And I just said, is this really all necessary? And then the officer became like very angry and just kept yelling, get in your car, drive away. And then the one, like a couple of the officers at the back of other officers, like there was, out of the 10, there was only one who was being aggressive at all. And they called him back, and he went back, and we got in our car. We drove away, and we were like, okay, but we'll be back. Let's be back. Oh, because somebody gave us money too when we were passing out coffees. Someone came up to us and gave us $50, and they were like, if you go, like, I'll give you this, because I think like if you get more, use this to get more. And so we went back to Tim Hortons, and we used the money that this person had given to us, and we got a whole bunch of hot chocolate because people were pretty done with coffee, and there's a bunch of kids starting to come. And so anyway, we got hot chocolates, and so we came back to where they were protesting, but we parked one road over because someone had told us, like, just park over there. There was a lot of cars already on that street, and it was like right in front of the War Memorial Museum. And so anyway, yeah, so we went and got hot chocolate. We came back. We were with the protesters again. There's quite a few more people here now. And then I was like, Krista, I really want to take a picture of the signs because I don't understand why we even got a ticket. And so then we look over, and there's like an Ottawa van and an unmarked police car, and they're driving around, and he's like paper clipping these paper signs on top of the signs. And Krista, like, she's so funny. She's like, why are you putting your arts and crafts on top of those signs? Because they just said like special event. Oh, they said special event, like no parking. And they were legit like real paper clips. They were just paper clipping these paper signs on top of the signs that said we could park there. But this is like an hour and a half after they had already given us a ticket and tried to tow away our car. So what we thought, so Krista like filmed the whole thing. She filmed them going and like putting up different signs. Like we just watched them just change the rules, you know, like I guess they just decided that that's, you know, we're just watching that go down. And which like people there had been watching that go down there as well. They're just trying to make it really, really difficult for people to be there, I think. And so yeah, like, but it was just so ridiculous. And the guy's like putting up the signs, and Chris is like filming him, and she's like, hello, like, and he like waves from across the street, like super awkwardly. She's like, well done, you know, like, good job with your arts and crafts, I guess. And yeah, so I don't know what we're gonna do. We were just essentially just for ourselves to remember, you know, and I'm not gonna like fight the ticket or anything, because it was just one of those things where they're just like, you kind of expose yourself, like people weren't doing anything wrong, and it just got escalated so quickly. Like it turned into something that it didn't really have to be, in my opinion. And yeah, it was just really wild. And so there's a video of it, so I can find that and share that. But one of the guys was videoing like the whole time, and he had tried to give me my ticket, because he was like, oh, you have a ticket on your car, and he tried to give it to you, and the officer was like, do not touch it, that's not your property. And yeah, it was just a really interesting experience. And but it was just like, oh my gosh, the people, because we didn't really know them, we had just met them that day, but all the people that had come with us, and they were like cheering, like, let her go, let them go. And then like taking my ticket off the car, and like one of the people who I knew, like he had been there for, a couple weeks, he had lost his job, and so he was there, and he's like yelling, like, how much is your ticket? We'll give you some money for your ticket. And like, I don't even know these people, and they're offering to pay for my ticket, and they're like rallied behind Krista and I, standing by our car. And it was just like this really, really incredible experience. And just like, oh man, it was like the inspiration of being surrounded by people. And it was like after hearing a lot of their stories too, like a lot of them had been on the front lines and been pushed around, and some of them had been like received some abuse from batons, and like they have so, like, the people that we were there with and standing with were so joyous and so loving and like singing and dancing, and they're so focused, right? Like they were so rooted in love that, and they just were like, they knew they're trying to get people to retaliate, and they just were so, they were choosing to be kind, and they were choosing to be loving like that whole time. And like it was so cold, it was freezing, it was so cold, and Chris and I were only there for like a day and a half, and they had been there for weeks, and they were still like just so loving. And it was just like the human spirit on fire, and like it's emotional. Like it wasn't even like when we are getting the ticket and all this, like it was like a comical thing, kind of like we were very calm about it, but then like it became so funny afterwards because it was like it didn't have to be something that like was blown up like that. We didn't think, but it does, right? Like it's one of those things where when like when you remain calm and you just let things unfold, right? The more people expose themselves instead of being like called out for something, I think the more powerful it is. And that's where like with some of the truckers, the vibe I got was that they might have been a little bit disappointed that they had left. But what had happened, like with them being so peaceful, with them staying so calm and loving and peaceful, and how aggressive the restrictions became, and like the Emergencies Act, and bringing in all those, like, I don't know, like they just expose what's truly going on. And yeah, it was just really, really incredible. So it's one of those things where I'm so glad that I went, and not to like just to truly experience it myself, so then I knew, right? Because yeah, but it's one of those things where it reiterated how powerful one person can be, like, and how one person can change that whole thing, because like if one of those protesters reacts in like a very justifiable reasons, they'd have justifiable reasons probably to react in some of those situations, but they don't. And it's because everybody is choosing to do that and stay calm and loving, like, and it's been going on for as long as it's been going on. Like that's so powerful. And it's one of those things where you don't have to be in Ottawa to make a difference like that. Like it was incredible to be there, and incredible to have that experience. And like I'm happy to share what that experience like was. And but the biggest thing is like if you go there, like if Krista and I went there looking for like us getting a ticket, it could have, the whole trip could have been like, we were targeted, we got a ticket, it was unfair. But we weren't looking for things like that. We were looking to see the love that was there, and the unity that was there. And like that is what really came from our own experience of being there. We got to experience the unity and love from people that like we didn't even know, and they had our backs. Like it's just, oh my gosh, it was such a beautiful thing. And so, but we can create that elsewhere too. You don't have to go to Ottawa to find that. And so I guess like if someone else is listening to this and you feel a little bit alone, and you feel like somebody doesn't have your back, I want you to message me too, and I want to hear about your experience, because it's really, really powerful when we can feel like we've been heard, and when someone has our backs. Because I think sometimes, in what's been kind of programmed into us over the last few years especially, is that like if you listen to someone, and if you're seen listening to someone, then all of a sudden you're painted as like you agree with that person, and now you have the same values as that person, which is just so wild. Like like we can still listen to each other and provide space for each other. But like, because sure, there was people there that I wouldn't agree with, that share different perspectives that I don't agree with, who maybe say and act in ways that I wouldn't do. And but like, that's not the point. The point is that everybody's different. And I don't know, just like canceling people or unwilling to listen to people. And it just wasn't like that. It just wasn't like that there. And so it's like one of those things where, because once you start seeing things, it's only when you start seeing things for yourself, I think, that things stir up inside of you to make change. And it doesn't have to mean you like go to a protest, like physically go to a protest. It just means like that feeling inside that starts stirring and starts creating like anxious feelings, or you'll know the feelings. It's a nudge to get yourself into action. And because this is what I've learned, the quicker you can get into action and out of your head, the easier it is, the better life is, the more energy you'll have. You'll find more people who have similar goals to you, even though you don't share the similar perspectives on a lot of things, but you might have a similar goal. And it's like finding people who create that space for you, and you create community. And the more you can act in a way that brings love into your life, and choosing to be loving where you could be like where they're wanting you to choose fear. Now, like for me, like an example is like listening to the Prime Minister. I actually don't listen to it very often, not gonna lie. I don't really listen to the news very much, and I just don't, because like even when I listen to him and as a leader, and I put air quotes around it because I don't see him as a leader, like when he's up there and he's using words that are so hateful and so purposely trying to divide people. He's not moving, he's not acting out of power. He's not a powerful person. The moment anybody starts to gaslight someone else, say their experience isn't real, or that they'll just start name calling them because they don't agree with some of the things they think or say or do, and you're not like in any kind of dialogue, and you're just name calling and gaslighting and bullying the other person, that person is not moving out of power. They're not a powerful person. They're moving out of fear. And like once you see that, and once you experience that from people, and then you experience people who are moving in love and are acting out of love, like you can't unsee those things. And you start to become really aware and mindful about how you feel when you're around certain people, or how you feel when you're in action towards something. And because you'll notice there's a very, very big difference between how people live and act and talk when they are moving in a fear and when they're moving in love. It's totally different. And the people who are like, the Prime Minister is my example in this, but I don't see him as a powerful person because I see him as very, very fearful. And I just don't have time for that. I really, really don't. And so standing with those people this weekend, that it was just like really, really inspirational. And so if you weren't able to be there, if you wanted to be there, you were just curious to what's going down, and you're still listening to me and what this experience was like, then let me know if you have questions about it, because then I can answer any questions if you want. But then also find your people that are creating loving space and not fear-based, because it's that saying of like, you're the average of 5 people that you spend your time with. That goes for people on social media. And so yeah, just once you become more aware, be aware of that is, and maybe it's you'll know when I know right away when I'm acting out of fear and when I'm acting out of love. When I'm acting out of fear, I'm not really doing very much. Like I'm pretty inactive and it feels terrible. And yeah, like I can feel I can feel the difference in myself. And that's where it starts. Once I started to notice that in myself, from when or why I was making certain choices, and when I was making choices out of love, even though they were scary, I was so rooted in them and I was so sure of them that it didn't matter what other people thought or what other people said about it, because I was in love. I loved what I did, and or it brought more love into my life. And when I was making decisions out of like a fear, oh man, I would get tossed around. I would toss myself around. I was relentless with myself because it was like this back and forth thing, constantly questioning, because I would made it out of fear. It wasn't rooted in anything real or anything that brought purpose to my life. You know, it was I was like holding on to like outside things. So I was just being dragged around from opinion to perspective, and it was like super, super exhausting. And then once I started making decisions out of love, and like how rooted I felt in that and how strengthening it was, and even though it was hard, I was still rooted in it, and I was still able to like know that it was right because it was a decision for me and I made it out of love. And then once I started noticing the difference for myself, I just like fall more in love with making decisions out of love, because then it just feels good and I have more energy for people, and I can create more space for people, because I don't need people to make the same decisions as me to know that it's the right decision for me. I know that it's the right decision for me because of how I feel and how I respond and how I act once I make those decisions. And yeah, so if that's you, like if that's something that you are like working through or you're curious about, we can always talk about that too. Like just message me and we can just talk about it. So yeah, that's my experience from Ottawa this past weekend, and I'm probably going to do some journaling and writing about it, but I really want to end this video. I don't know if I'm going to share this video. It might just be for me to keep for my memory. And but yeah, in case I do share it, if you have questions, let me know. I'd love to talk about it and just connect, and you just know that you're not alone. And just the biggest thing is, don't feel like you have to change the world. It's just become more aware of you and yourself, because like we can only control ourselves. We can only control that. And so focusing back in on things that we can control, and choosing love over fear, choosing yourself. Ooh, that's powerful, you know? That's so, so powerful. So I'm rooting for you, no matter what.